Well, good morning. I am museum scientist for the Sibley Nature Center, Michael Nickel, and this is another one of our occasional podcasts for the Sibley Nature Center. On February 11th, the day was known as the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. The background for that, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, better known as UNESCO, came up with an idea to promote world peace and security through international cooperation in education, arts, science, and culture. It's an annual observance adopted by the UN General Assembly to promote the full and equal access and participation of women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, better known as STEM. Sibley Nature Center is fortunate to have a partnership with St. Anne's School here in Midland with the fourth through eighth grade girls, trying to get girls involved in science. It's a statistic that's well documented that when girls reach a particular age, around sixth through eighth grades, thereabouts, that they lose interest in science and mathematics. Today, I want to welcome Christine Curran. She is our first podcast of a local woman in science. So thanks for joining us, Christy.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be the first.
Well, absolutely. It's our pleasure and our privilege. I guess I just want to start off going back in your life. How did you become interested in science?
Oh boy. Um, Honestly, I think it was just kind of a natural thing. I was always very curious, but always, I guess, a little bit logical. So when I had a question about something, I would kind of run my own, maybe a little mental experiment. And I kind of realized that that kind of mentality and curiosity really geared me towards science. And so I think I just kind of fell into it, just realizing that's kind of how my brain worked.
Well, was that something that you did on your own, or did you have parents or siblings or cousins or friends that that was an influence?
I definitely would say my parents were a big influence. Both of them were teachers. And so growing up with teachers, they definitely fostered that curiosity. I remember doing a lot of science experiments and science fairs growing up, and I've loved it. That was like one of my favorite things to do at school was the science fair.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was a kid, one of my big aspirations was to be a paleontologist. And I guess I was kind of like the little boy Calvin in Calvin and Hobbes, and so I can identify with that kid. Did you have any childhood dreams or aspirations?
I would say, looking back, I remember for Christmas one year, I got, from my grandparents, they gave us the encyclopedia, like the actual books encyclopedia,
Yeah.
but they also came with CDs or DVDs that you could look up additional information on,
Uh-huh.
and I was super curious about dogs, um, learning about all the breeds of dogs, and I tried to memorize every breed of dog, and for the longest time, I wanted to be a vet
Uh-huh.
because I was so curious about dogs,
Yeah.
and so I thought that was gonna be my career,
Well,
is a vet.
just out of curiosity, do you recall what encyclopedias you used and what edition, maybe?
Oh god. It was red,
Okay.
had some gold writing,
All right.
probably Encyclopedia Britannica, is that
Yeah.
what it was?
Yeah. Okay.
Um, I think they're in my parents' basement still.
The reason I asked that was my go-to reference throughout my entire childhood was the 1964 edition, I'm dating myself, of World Book Encyclopedia.
Okay.
That was such an influence on me, and I still have that 64 edition of World Book Encyclopedia today.
That's
I
amazing.
will not part with it. I mean, that was the internet, the computer
Exactly.
back then, And the 64 edition, of course, we didn't have supporting CDs. I mean,
Mhm.
you got what you got. That's fascinating. I'm glad you had experience growing up with encyclopedias.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, dating myself as well.
yeah. Well, as you became older, like say later grade school years, junior high, did you experience any social pressures that would turn the direction of your life again away from science?
Honestly, I wouldn't say so. Actually, I think if anything, I kind of turned more toward science. I had a really wonderful biology teacher in high school, and he was a real inspiration. And he was so passionate about science and made it fun. He really was kind of like maybe the last driving factor that kind of pushed me towards science in college.
Mhm.
And so if anything, I don't think I ever really turned away from it. I didn't really know anything else I wanted to do more.
So would you say that he was one of your better teachers that you ever had?
Absolutely.
Like, if you don't mind, could you share with me some examples of his teaching method that made an impact on you?
He was just very quirky. The way that he presented everything was just lighthearted and fun. It didn't really seem like, a dull lesson.
Mhm.
Um, just very approachable, friendly guy. We did a lot of hands-on things. He tried to get us outside as much as we could. Uh, I think pretty sure it was a shark. We dissected a shark, and that was really cool.
Yeah.
He was just a really fun guy and just didn't take it too serious, which made
Okay.
it enjoyable.
Yeah. Was there any particular lesson that he had that really stuck with you?
Definitely the dissections. We
Okay.
did the shark, and I know we did an earthworm, we did a frog,
Uh-huh.
just all the hands-on stuff he
Yeah.
brought were
Yeah.
really, really, really fun.
Well, when you were in school, did they have like advanced classes? Okay. All right.
Yep, so trying to think. So where I went to school in upstate New York, we weren't too far from Syracuse.
Okay.
And so we had a couple courses that were through Syracuse University. And so the class that I took for biology, it was AP, but it was also accredited with Syracuse. So I got a college credit as well taking that course.
Okay.
So it was really fun being able to kind of get a head start on college before I got there. Kind of a nerd.
Um, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Except my experience was a little bit different. I went through a phase that I was influenced by my peers that the sciences weren't all that cool, and so I kind of strayed, and to my regret,
Yeah.
I'm very pleased and glad that you stuck with it.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't think I'd be good at anything else,
Yeah.
really.
Okay.
So I said, "I better stick to this."
All right. All right. Well, eventually you graduated from high school. Went to college. Where did you go to school in college?
A very small private school, liberal arts school in Canton, New York. I'm guessing most people have never heard of Canton, but the school's called St. Lawrence University, and I went there because my grandfather went there.
Okay.
It's close to the Canadian border.
It was a four-year school? They have
Yes.
a graduate program also?
They only have graduate studies in education, I believe.
Okay.
Their masters.
Alright.
Might have changed since then, but
So what did you choose to major in at
biology.
okay. Was it just like a general degree in biology, or is it more of a specialized, biology?
It was just general biology. Being
Okay.
a liberal arts school,
Uh-huh.
everything was a little bit
Alright.
generalized. But I did a biology major, and then I minored in psychology and sociology.
Okay.
So I liked all the
Yeah.
ologies, I
Yeah.
guess.
Uh, did you, um, uh, did you have any other sciences besides the biology? chemistry, physics, geology, anything like that?
I did chemistry. I was pre-med for a while, and then I took organic chemistry, and I decided against pre-med.
Okay, all right.
Not my favorite.
Okay, okay. Um, this is a pause that you're gonna have to edit just a little bit. My mind was wandering just a little bit. Um, did you have any uh, part-time jobs or student-related jobs in your college career?
I did. Where I went to school, we had Division 1 ice hockey, and so I worked at the hockey rink on the weekends as an usher.
Okay,
So that was my weekend job, and then I also was a TA, for calculus and a sociology class.
okay. So if you're a TA in calculus, I would venture to say you're pretty good in mathematics.
I'm okay at it. I never really loved math, but it seemed to
Mm,
make sense in my brain. Like I said, I'm kind of a logical, you know, kind of person, so math just, hard, fast rules seem to make sense.
okay. Um, with mathematics, now that you're older and more mature now, uh, can you see an overlap or a necessity of mathematics in what you do?
Mm. Maybe not a whole lot. It was very handy in graduate
Uh-huh.
school, statistics, of course, and, in previous roles when I've done research, obviously, it came in handy,
Yeah.
trying to put papers together and,
Uh-huh.
again, run statistics, but, um, current job, maybe not too much, thankfully, 'cause it's not
Yeah.
my favorite.
Well, I want to share a story with you from my high school past with mathematics. I remember I was taking a course in I believe it was plane geometry, and it was kind of a snoozer course in my opinion. It was not easy. I was doing okay, but my heart back then was being pointed more toward art.
Okay.
And I like to draw whenever I went home from school, and I was having problems with this one particular drawing. It just was not clicking, I could not figure out why. And then one day, we had a lesson on 30, 60, 90 triangles, proportions of 30, 60, 90 triangles in geometry class, and I noticed on the board, I says, "That shape looks very, very familiar." And so I perked up just a little bit and started paying a little bit more attention. And then when I went home and looking at my drawing, it had a third, not intended, it had a 30, 60, 90
Wow,
triangle in it. And then everything started clicking
that's too funny.
with it was bizarre. It was cosmic almost.
Right, it was meant to be.
I guess so. But anyway, at that moment, no matter what course I took, I always look for some application for me as an artist, and most of the times I've been able to find it. I'm still looking for my calculus. It's
Fair
it's
enough.
yeah, okay. Alright. Um, did you have any, jobs as far as being a student in which you actually, were other than the TA that you worked in some area of science?
My senior year, they built this brand new science facility which had an animal vivarium. And so for my psychology classes, we were using rodents. And so we were housing these rodents in the vivarium. And so I think it was my last semester, I ended up working in the vivarium, taking care of the rodents and feeding them and changing their cages and that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
um, kind of random, but
Uh, why rodents?
So for psychology, teaching behavior.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah,
right. All right.
yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can see a lot of correlations between rats and people. And, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Uh, did you go to graduate school?
I did.
Okay.
I took a small break in between. I took 2 years off after I graduated with my undergraduate, and then, went back to a bigger school, the University of Kentucky, and did a master's.
Okay. A master's in.
Nutrition and wellness.
Okay. So go from pre med, not pre med, now nutrition. How did you decide to do that?
I guess I've always been interested in, um, diet and eating healthy, and, I always played sports growing up, so that was just kind of a natural interest for me,
Uh-huh.
and then, I guess, long story short, realizing how much college cost, I started doing some research on graduate schools and kind of personal interests, and then looking at specific labs. And I found a professor at Kentucky who is doing exercise research. And he was looking at how exercise in the moms might affect the offspring. So during pregnancy, if the mom exercised, if the offspring would have any benefits. So they're calling it maternal programming.
Okay. So what more specifically, what was your role in this type of research?
So I pretty much I contacted his name was Dr. Pearson, and I contacted him to see if he was looking for any research associates who would be attending grad school, and he was. And so I went for a visit and really loved what he was doing. So I was able to do my master's work and work in his lab and doing his research projects at the same time.
Okay. What type of research projects was he doing?
So he was still doing the exercise during pregnancy.
Okay. All right.
Um, so we had some rats that were pregnant, and we gave them access to running wheels.
Okay.
And it was amazing how much they would run during pregnancy, like miles and miles these rats would run. And then testing, we were looking at kind of the offspring's glucose regulation, looking at diabetes implications.
Okay. Um, if you're like most people, life happens. Did you end up taking any detours after school?
Yeah, so during undergrad, I met a guy who was 2 years behind me at school. And so during I mentioned that I took a break after I got my biology degree. And so he was still finishing college. And so I ended up working for 2 years at Dartmouth College, which was kind of still near St. Lawrence, drivable distance. So we were kind of maintaining a long distance relationship. And then once he graduated, um, he was trying to pursue professional hockey, which is a very uncertain route, being traded and
Mhm.
traveling. So that's kind of when I decided to kind of focus on myself and go back to grad school. Um, and we did another 2 years of distance during that time. But it definitely wasn't kind of the straight route that I thought I might take in my career path, but, I think everything happens for a reason.
Well, was this toward your? Do you have one or two master's degrees?
I have one.
One. Okay. So
Mhm.
this was just uh, geared more toward to finishing up that master's, or
Yeah, I think I originally maybe I thought that I would finish my biology degree and then go straight to grad school, and instead, I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do, and I was kinda waiting around for this boy.
okay.
And so that's why I ended up working for 2 years kind of figuring out myself a little bit.
Yeah.
But then I realized, okay, I do wanna go to grad school and went. So,
Okay.
just took a little while to figure it out.
Yeah, that's makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's a very common story.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, what are you currently doing?
So right now I work at ConocoPhillips, an oil and gas producing company. I work it's kind of, maybe a non-traditional oil and gas job, but I have a role in sustainable development for our surface lands.
Okay, to explain uh, about sustainable development.
So, I guess when people think oil and gas, a lot of people think, drilling and production. And the group that I work for is Surface Lands. And so we own surface lands in Texas and New Mexico, the group that I work for. And so we are managing how we use that surface. And so I find it's a little bit confusing in Texas. You can own the surface, but you might not own the minerals below it. And so we're speaking strictly of surface is what our group deals with. And so we have this really great opportunity to look at that land and, manage it in a sustainable way. And so we do work with other producers that are using our surface to get to the mineral um, and kind of managing how they're um, I guess, using our surface. And then for our own groups, we do help with planning and trying to avoid, sensitive habitat areas and thinking about reclamation work and things like that.
So, where all does this job take you?
So our group, we have just over 130,000 acres of surface that we own in Texas, and then we have over 60,000 acres in New Mexico. I office out of the Midland Conoco office here, and so I'm mostly on our Texas property, which the bulk of it, called Quail Ranch, is in Upton County, so towards Crane.
Okay. I'm curious. Uh, what do you think about you made you the right person for this job? What would you think?
I think so my role is quite varied. I do a range of tasks. Sometimes I'm out in the field with our biologists doing wildlife surveys, looking for quail. Sometimes I'm in the office filing paperwork, or working with the water districts in New Mexico looking at water rights. So I'm kind of all over the place in terms of things that I work on. And I think I I've had a variety of roles. So after I finished grad school, I moved to Canada with the boy that I talked about, who I ended up marrying. He ended up getting a job in Alberta. And so when I moved there, I'm a US citizen, so I couldn't work right away. And when I did get my permanent residence, I ended up taking a job working in an environmental lab. And then I ended up taking a job in a nonprofit group for a couple years doing fundraising for heart and stroke. And then after that, I worked in a bee lab. And so I've had a wide range of experience from sciencey things, lab things to nonprofits. And so I think all of that has really helped me in my wide variety of, responsibilities at Conoco. So even though it was kind of a messy route to get to my job now, it definitely all has helped me today in what I do.
I think that's an important message for kids in school now is that what you might be doing here and there it has doesn't seem like it has anything to do with what you want to do. Everything is going to work together to make you the person into what you need to be and be
Absolutely.
very, very diverse into what you can do.
For sure.
I think that's a very, very good story to tell.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you for sharing that.
No worries. It's funny because when I was in Alberta, I was working at this honeybee research facility, and I absolutely loved it. And long story short, funding for my position ended, and so, I had to find something else, and I was just heartbroken, and I thought that was, the job for me, and, um, you know, you move on and you find other things, and I'm so happy in the role I'm in now, so, things might happen for a reason or, lead you to something else that you really love.
Now, are you working on a special project right now?
Special project. We always have projects at Quail Ranch. But personally, I've been working on pollinator health. Like I said, I worked in a bee lab previously, so bees have kind of a special place in my heart. But we have a unique opportunity with all the surface land that we own to look at pollinators. And so let's see, when was it? Last March, I started this project with the Texas Master Naturalists, our local chapter, the Llano Estacado, and they have a group of people really interested in bees as well. And so they had done a project collecting native bees from the Odessa Midland area and looking at kind of identifying what species we have here. And I thought it'd be a wonderful opportunity to trap some bees from our ConocoPhillips properties in Upton County um, to also contribute to that knowledge. So I spent from March of 2023 up until October collecting bees from 9 locations on our ranch.
Can you uh, tell me a little bit more detail about your methods? What do you do to go about collecting bees, and what do you do with them?
Yeah, I realized I forgot the trap, but, we use this trap, it's called a blue vein trap, and it's pretty much, um, it's like a big plastic mason jar kinda thing on the bottom, and then the top that attaches kind of this funnel-y looking thing, but it's the bottom is yellow and the top is blue, and so it's very bright, and so what happens is the bees see this bright thing and, inside the jar is water with a little bit of soap to make it a little bit viscous, and so when the bees fly in, unfortunately, they get trapped in the soapy water, and then that's how you collect the bees.
What uh, collecting the bees? What's the significance of the collection?
The significance?
Yeah.
Well, at least for us at ConocoPhillips, I chose the 9 locations with our biologist, and some of them were chosen based on, like, one location is we call King Mountain, and so it's a little bit at elevation in comparison to the others, and then a couple other locations, we looked at areas where we did, grassland restoration projects, or we had planted or reseeded with native seed, and so we were hoping to maybe see, we would hope that maybe there'd be more bees, pollinators, at those the restored areas versus kind of the natural overgrown mesquite-filled pieces that we have. So we're hoping right now I've sent the bee collection on to an expert in Austin, and so I'm hoping that, we'll get some good results.
Kinda interested in your take because, here at Sibley Nature Center, I've caught, a little bit of pushback as far as collections. Why not just use photography? Why do you need collections?
I mean, I think just thinking about myself trying to collect photos of all the bees, some of them are so small. And then if there's bees, that come out at night, I don't want to be out there at night trying to take pictures. So I mean the traps that I set, they sit out for a full day, and
Yeah.
so that gives the bees a full day, depending on what kinda cycle they follow or when they come out, it gives a good chance to kinda collect everything,
Mm.
um, so I do think it's obviously the best method,
Yeah.
and, your eye can only see so much,
Yeah.
but I definitely have gotten a lotta, um, sad responses when they see all the dead bees.
Yeah. But you're not collecting every single bee out there.
Exactly.
There's a purpose for these collections.
Exactly.
Uh, one of those purposes is just to see what we've got,
Right.
species diversity, and it's not like you're trying to eliminate or wipe out a population. We just need to sample it and find out what we've got.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
I was only sampling, once every 3 weeks,
yeah,
so not too often.
yeah. Well, what did before you sent the bees off to Austin, did you do anything as far as with the bees?
Well, so when I get them, they're in that soapy water, and so I would have to transfer them over to, ethanol just to kinda preserve them until I could get to them, because sometimes you'd have, hundreds of bees that you need to process, and so from there, I would pin them. I'm by no means a professional at insect pinning, but the master naturalist taught me a bit about what I do know. And so I pinned all the bees that I got, and turns out we collected just under 2,000 from March to October, which
Okay.
was, I think, a lot more than I expected and a lot more pinning than I thought I'd be doing. Um, and then I was trying to kind of organize them a little bit, um, just kind of by looks, right? Like
Mhm.
these look the same as these, and I brought some to you as well to look at.
Yeah, that does ring a bell, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I pretty much I tried to get them organized just by size and color because I'm definitely not a native bee expert.
Yeah,
And then I also was taking pictures of anything in bloom when I did the collection.
okay.
So the day that I would put the trap out, I would walk around with my camera and take photos of any kind of flowers I would see. And then I kept a log of that. And so I've also sent that to the entomologist in Austin. So that might help him, further identify what bees we have.
Are you fairly, familiar with our local flora, the species of plants that the bees preferred?
I'm trying.
Okay,
My boss, Jesse Wood, is really good, and our biologist, Jason, is also pretty good at plant ID. So I've actually been trying to learn a lot more since, and even when I'm in the field, just doing other things, I'll tend to look down and take pictures of grasses and plants and, log them and make mental note like, okay, this is Sido's grandma and things like that. Cause coming from Alberta, there's a lot of different flora here.
you think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Different
Uh,
climate.
did you happen to notice the colors of the flowers that the bees that most of the bees were preferring to visit?
I mean, I feel like a lot of what we have is kind of in the yellow and whites, a lot of the daisies. Um, I didn't really I didn't really hang around too much looking for the bees flying around. I mostly was just kind of trying to take pictures of what was out there. Um, but the daisies had a lot of activity for
Okay,
sure.
alright.
Especially, I mean, at times there might only be one thing in bloom, so the the choices are a little bit limited.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with the drought. Yeah, I've noticed that as well.
Mhm.
Well, I know that, that you're not a clairvoyant, so you really can't see into the future, but using your imagination just a little bit, what do you see yourself doing, like, say, 5 or 10 years in the future, maybe?
Oh my. I hope to still be here. As I mentioned, I've had a variety of career roles in the past, and a little bit of that has been, based on the fact that my husband's Canadian and I'm American. Before we moved to Texas, we were in Alberta for just over 8 years. So that that felt nice being somewhere for, a good chunk of time, and so we hope to stay in Texas for quite a while. So I'm hoping I'm still here. There's a lot of projects I like to get done at Conoco. One big thing that we're working on is, looking at legacy locations and cleaning up and, reclaiming pits and reclaiming well pads and things like that. And so that's one thing I really, really want to focus on in the near future, and kind of being able to stick around long enough to see the benefits and, see native grass growing again and things like that. But who knows?
Well, do you see yourself as, not necessarily this is a deliberate thing on your part, but one of those things that just happens. Do you see yourself as a role model or a mentor for girls in science?
I would hope so. I mean, it's not something you try to be like, "Hey, look at me."
Yeah,
Um, but if someone watches this, maybe they'll say, "Okay, maybe the road to get to where I want to be isn't, perfect or a straight line, but to maybe, know that things take time, and if you're passionate about something that you can get there." I am a little bit of an optimist.
yeah. Well, that road that you speak of and, the pitfalls, the struggles that you had going down that road, all in all, was it worth the trip?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't really I don't know, it's weird, looking retrospectively and thinking about how you could have changed something. I'm quite content where I am today, and I don't know, it's how life works, right? You take all these little roads to get to where you are.
Yeah, that's how it works. Just, even just little things can make big differences down the road.
Yeah, and even the speed bumps, getting let go from the job because the grant ended, that seemed like a really terrible time at the moment, but, um, everything kinda worked itself out, and just gotta go with it, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, Christy, it's been a pleasure, and thank you very much for sitting down with me for this podcast. This I learned a lot.
Thanks, Michael, thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure.